Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Carly Stevens, and this is Carly Stevens Books for all things writing, publishing, and indie author life. Make sure to subscribe if that sounds good to you. Today we're talking about how to take criticism. It's not everybody's favorite topic as an author, but if you are going to be a writer that gets their work in front of anybody at all, you have to be open to the possibility of criticism. But you may say, my book is perfect, it's incredible, it's meant for everybody. It's not meant for everybody. People have different opinions about books, different preferences for books. I mean, the greatest books ever written are not universally beloved by everybody who picks them up. So if you are serious about getting a book published, about, getting your book out there, you have to develop a bit of that thicker skin. So I have for you today some tips for, what do you do with criticism? What types of criticism are there? What should you listen to? And what should you just ignore? I'm going to separate criticism into two distinct categories. You have critique, which is meant to give you helpful feedback to improve your writing by, a reader expressing their experience. Like, yes, I love this genre, but this didn't really work for me. Or maybe a critique group, a writing group, something, beta readers. So that's one type of criticism. We have critique, we have feedback that is meant to be useful to you as the writer to improve your work. And then you have criticism that is just criticism. It's strangers online who say, I didn't like this book, that kind of thing. So let's address this first, because this is where I'm going to spend most of my time. The criticism that you get in, say, an Amazon review or something once your book is out is for the readers. It's really not for you. A lot of people don't even read their book reviews because it can really hurt. People are, I'm sure everybody thinks people are nice online, but obviously that's not always the case. Personally, I do read all of my reviews just because I love that little boost I get anytime there's a positive one. I have, of course, gotten negative reviews, but I actually see the occasional negative review. If it were all negative, that would be one thing, but the occasional negative review as a positive, because that means that my book has reached beyond friends and family and has ricocheted into somebody's life who is really not meant for this book, and this book is not meant for them. So that means it's gone a little farther out into the world, and that is a positive thing. So when I got my first 1-star review that said this is the worst book I've ever read, which is a rite of passage if you're going to be an author, somebody's going to say it, somebody's going to be the worst. I just made myself a beverage that evening, and I was like, cheers to me for finally, overcoming this kind of real author hurdle of getting that really negative 1-star review. Okay, so that type of criticism you can honestly totally ignore. Again, that's for the readers, and they can kind of decide if they want to pick up your book. It is not meant for you. Now, if you put a book out there and it's getting like all 1 and 2 stars, then you should be paying attention to why that is, like what is not really working in the story that everybody's saying this, right? Okay, now over to this side, we have criticism that is critique, it's feedback, it's you get in a group and people give their opinions about your work and scary things like that. Even a creative writing class or wherever you're getting that feedback. First thing I want to say about this type of feedback is that you should be getting it, especially as a newer writer. Getting that feedback from other writers, other readers is tremendously useful in improving your craft, improving your story, improving the experience for your readers. So seek out these opportunities. If you are really sensitive to negative feedback of any kind, then put your toes in the water in a very safe feeling way. Maybe reach out to a friend or a family member that you know is going to say mostly positive things no matter what the story is, but maybe there's a little tiny nugget of feedback in there, but take that first step toward identifying people or groups that are going to give you that feedback, in person, online, whatever it might be. All right, so you get some feedback, you have beta readers come back with their thoughts on your book. I have some do's and don'ts for you, just as you're kind of digesting this feedback and deciding how to take it, what to do, how to move forward, and how to turn it into something that is positive for your writing experience rather than something that is negative. So in the do column, do be open-minded. We have very strong opinions about our books. I hear you. I also have strong opinions about my books. Ultimately, this is your work. These are your characters. This is your plot. But try to go into feedback sessions or, answers to questions that you've asked with an open mind. Be available to improve your story. So don't just immediately get defensive and close yourself off and give explanations and not be open to those ideas. Otherwise, what is the point of getting feedback or critique at all that is meant to help you grow? So be open-minded. In the don't column, try not to take criticism personally. Think about the books that you've read, right, that you haven't loved. Maybe there's some pacing issues or there was a character you didn't like or whatever. It's not that you were personally attacking the author, or I certainly hope not. If you're doing that in your reviews, please stop. Instead, it was an opinion that you had. It's like, wow, this story really could have been better if this character weren't in it or whatever. So try not to take criticism personally. Try to look at it as objectively as you can and think, all right, so these people care enough about me to give me this feedback here. This is not saying that I am a terrible person. It's not even saying that I'm a terrible writer. It's just saying that there are ways to improve, which is true about all of us, right? Regardless of how many books we have out. Back in the do column, you get some feedback from your group, from beta readers. Try to get feedback from more than one person. That's really not going to be super helpful. It can be, but often what you want to do is, again, in the do column, look for patterns. So if you send out your book to some beta readers for feedback, say there are like 6 of them or something, one person hates this scene, one person loves this scene, how do you decide what's really the important stuff to pay attention to? Often it lies in the patterns. If you see 3 out of 6 people, fully half, stop reading your book at a particular chapter, then that tells you something is off. Your pacing is off. You're not gripping them on to that next chapter. So is there a better hook? Are there enough questions that you're asking there? If a lot of people are giving you feedback about the same thing, then you should most definitely take that seriously and consider making those changes. However, back to the don't side, don't try to appease everybody. It can be tempting to try to make every change that people suggest, right? This person hates this scene, this person loves this scene, so you don't touch this one, but you change that one. It's fine to evaluate all of the feedback, of course, especially those things you see more than once. However, if you try to appease everybody, your book is going to become less and less of your own vision and more into something that is kind of bland and doesn't really satisfy anybody. Like I said at the beginning, there's no book that's going to appeal to every single person. So you need to consider, who is this person giving me feedback? Is this a genre that they normally read and like? Is this somebody who is, whose opinions kind of match up with my own to a certain extent? So yeah, if you try to appease everybody, you're just going to constantly be changing your work, and chances are you'll never get it out there, or even if you do, it's going to be just a shadow of what your original plan was. in order to try to be liked by everybody. And that's still going to fail. If your book is read by enough people, you're going to get that 1-star review that says, this is the worst book I've ever read. Hopefully that's overshadowed by dozens and dozens of 5-star reviews about how this is a wonderful book. But if you're looking for only validation, that's not going to work well for you. So don't try to appease everybody. Back in the do side, do take critique seriously, evaluate, think about all of those pieces of feedback, but then decide, is this the right call for your book, your characters, your genre, your plot? If you have questions about what somebody means by their feedback, or maybe you want to explain a little bit of like, well, because of what happens later in the story, that's why I did this. You can reach back out to those people who gave you those critiques, maybe with those questions. But again, take it seriously, be open-minded, but know that you do not have to take everybody's suggestions. Finally, in the don't column, don't compare your first draft to somebody else's final draft. That way lies despair. Final drafts are the product of tons of practice, tons of editing, tons of feedback, rewriting. Everybody's process is different, but don't compare your first draft, especially if it's your first draft of a novel ever. That's when you should be most open to change, to improvement, to understanding how story works and what's going to work best for your story in particular. How can you make your voice, your story, your characters shine out as bright as they possibly can? So yeah, those are some tips for how to deal with feedback and critique. I know it's difficult. I know it can be hard for me still, even though I have a pretty thick skin with that sort of thing now. Occasionally someone will say something and I'm like, but I don't want to listen, and really I should should listen. We're always growing, always learning. It's part of the whole deal of being an author. All right, well, if you want more content like this, writing, publishing, indie author life videos with interviews and craft videos and things like this, then make sure to subscribe, hit that notification button, share this channel with your friends, and I will see you next week with a brand new video. Until then, bye.